Hello viewers and listeners, I am your presenter Modou Sow. Welcome to another English class again. Before we go further, in the previous lessons we have an assignment, and the assignment reads: write a letter to the alcalde of your village telling him the importance of tree planting exercise. Now, here is the correction to that assignment. The address read as Kerjarga Village, Jokadu District, North Bank Region, 24th May 2020. Dear Alcalde, I write this letter to tell you the importance of tree planting. First, trees act as windbreakers, helping to stop strong wind from blowing roofs and also prevent wind erosion that can carry away soil nutrients as well. Moreover, the more trees we have, the more rainfall. In this way, farmers will have enough rain for crops to grow and have a good harvest. Finally, trees serve as great protection to the soil and also have great value for humans and animals. I hope you will encourage the whole village to embark on tree planting exercise. Yours sincerely, Mamad Job. That was the correction to the assignment. We look at formal letter today. In the previous presentations, we were looking at informal, semi-formal. Today, we will look at formal letter. Now, as the name suggests, formal letter, it is a business or official letter. It is written to people whom we have no personal relationship. A formal letter is addressed not to any name of a person, that is in bracket, not any recipient, but to the office or to the title of the person. Now, when we look at the difference between these letters, earlier on we said the informal letter is a letter that is written to a person who you have close relationship with or a person that you know very well. When we look at the semi-formal letter, is a letter that is written to person that you do not know very well or you do not have a close relationship with. And now the formal letter is telling us that it's not even addressed to a person, it's addressed to the title or to the office of that particular person. Like, for example, if a person is occupying an office, the letter is addressed to the title of that particular person, not the person himself. For example, if the person is a principal in a school, the letter is addressed to the principal, not the person. Let's assume Mahmoud is a principal. The letter will be addressed to the principal of that office instead of what? Mahmoud. So this is why this is the difference. One is written to people whom you are related with or have close relationship with or know each other very well. The other one is written to people that you do not know very well. And the other one is addressed to the title or to the office, not to any person. And that's why the letter follow formalities or formal procedures, and it is referred to as formal letter. Now, let's look at examples of formal letters. A letter to directors, ministers, private institutions, governors, principals, etc. So these are letters that are addressed to people who handle official posts. It's not addressed to the people as a person, it is addressed to the people as as the office or as the title that they are holding in that particular office. Another example is application for a job or appointment letters. These are also examples of formal letters. For example, you are applying for a job. You are going to address this letter to the person that is holding the position in that particular office. Or you are appointed as a secretary, as a minister, as a teacher, as a president of an institution. So this is what we are talking about. We are telling you that it is addressed to the person in that particular office. Now, let's look at what are the features of a formal letter. Now, the formal letter has the following features: 2 addresses, salutation, title or heading, body that is divided into introduction, content, and conclusion, then the subscription. Now, we look at all these features in details. Let's start with the address. Now, we were told that the formal letter contains 2 addresses. One of the address is found at the top right corner of the script. For example, here, let's assume this is the first address, that is the writer's address, SL Village, Lower Nyomi District, North Bank region. Like I said earlier on, if you are going to punctuate the address, you make sure that you punctuate it all. If you are not going to punctuate it, you can leave it as it is, but the date must be punctuated. For example, 16th March, remember March M capital, comma 2020 or 2020 full stop. Which means if I want, I will put a comma here at this end, and then at the end of the address I'll put a full stop. So this is what we are referring to as the sender's address. Since the formal letter has 2 addresses, the sender's address is found at the right hand corner or the top right corner of the script. Now the recipient address will be found at the left hand side, but you have to remember that these 2 addresses do not face one another, which means one has to be on top and the other one down on different areas. Like for example, after writing the sender's address, I will just look at here and write this like the editor. Then we have Daily Observer newspaper. Then we have Sere Kunda. Now, if you look at these 2 addresses here, we have one that is found at the right hand side, which belongs to the sender, which means the writer. This is the writer's address, and this is the recipient's address. This is the sender's and this is the recipient's address. Now, when we look at the address, we say unlike the informal and semi-formal letters, the formal letter has 2 addresses. One at the top right corner belonging to the writer, another at the left hand side belonging to the recipient. Now the recipient address begins with the title or the position of the person and has no date. If you look at the recipient address here, that says the editor. Now this is a newspaper house, for example. But the title of that particular person, the recipient here, is an editor in that newspaper house. So therefore, there is no date in the recipient's address, but there is date in the sender's address. So you look at this and you realize that these two addresses are not facing one another. One is at the right hand side and the other one is at the left hand side, but they are not facing one another. So it is important to note that the recipient address does not have a date. And also in the recipient address, it is at the recipient begins with the title or the position the person is holding. If the person is a principal, you have to say the principal. Then you say SL Senior Secondary School. Because in that institution, the position that the person that you are writing to is holding is the position of a principal, or that's the title. So for example, if it is a minister, you have to say the minister. Then you come and say the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education. All right? So that is the address for the formal letter. Now we look at the other feature of a formal letter, that is the salutation. Now, the salutation comes after the recipient's address. The most appropriate way of writing the salutation is dear sir. But dear sir / madam is also applicable if you do not know whether the recipient is a male or a female. So, like I said, in the salutation you have what we say right after the recipient's address, right below the recipient's address here. That's where you have the salutation, and it begins with dear sir and ends with a comma. In case that you do not know whether the person you are writing to is a male or female, which chances are very slim, because most of the time when you are writing to someone, probably you must know the person that you are writing to. But if it occurs in that case, you are going to use either dear sir / madam. That is applicable if you don't know. But if you know, write dear sir or you write dear madam. Okay? So that is the salutation. Now note, it is also accepted to use a colon after the salutation of a formal letter. However, you are advised to use a comma after the salutation. Okay? So we also notice that you can use the colon, but it is more appropriate and it is advisable that you use the comma after the salutation. Now we look at the title or the heading. Now after we have the salutation, like we said, the title or the heading usually captures the reason or the topic for the letter. Why is the letter written? Is because of this. So the title captures the reason why the letter is written. For example, if this was about to apply for a job, if this was an application for a job, for instance, I will have to, the title will be an application for a job, because that is the reason why the letter is written. Okay? So let's look at the examples that we have here. We have examples of this that says the causes of indiscipline in schools. The causes of indiscipline in school. For example, let's say you are writing to the ministry about indiscipline in schools. Then after writing the sender's address, then the recipient's address, then the salutation under, then comes the topic, while you say the causes of indiscipline in schools. Now, note that the title can either be capitalized or be left as it is and underlined. If it is in a lowercase, you can write it in small letters and underline it, or you can write it in capital letters and leave it as it is. So that is it. That's why we have different examples. Some examples are being capitalized and others are left with the lowercase. So that is it. For example 1, we have the causes of indiscipline in our schools. And that can be a heading or it can be a title. So you realize that the purpose of the letter is to write about in the causes of indiscipline in our school. So that's why earlier on it says the title or the heading usually captures the reason or the topic of the letter. Now, second example says poor conditions of roads in my community. Poor conditions of roads in my community. The third example says application for a position of a teacher. Like I said earlier on, if you were applying for a job, it is a title. Now, the other one, look at problems of agriculture in my country. Problems of agriculture in my country. And the other example read letter of appointment. Let's assume someone is being appointed as a director, and then all of a sudden you see the heading letter of appointment. Okay, so that is example of the heading or the title of a formal letter. Remember, the heading or the title is only found in a formal letter. The semi-formal and the informal letter do not have anything like a heading. The formal, the informal and the semi-formal letter does not have anything like heading. So we look at the body now. The body of a formal letter. Now, it is within the body that you have the breakdown of the introduction, the main body, that is the content, and then of course the conclusion. So here we are looking at the first segment of the body, that is the introduction. How do you introduce a formal letter? Like for example, in semi-formal and informal, you are addressing to a person. But in the formal letter, you are not addressing to a person, which makes it different. Your introduction should be polite and should not be directed to anyone. For example, when we wrote the informal letter, we said, "Dear Alcalo." Now we are directing to the Alcalo, semi-formal. When we wrote the informal letter, we said, "Dear Abdu," this is a person. But here, you are writing to the office, or you are writing and directing it to the person occupying that particular office, not the person himself or herself. Okay, so let's look at the introduction. The introduction says, the introduction of a formal letter start politely. You are expected not to ask after the welfare of the recipient or the family member. You are expected not to ask about the welfare, or because if you do, then you are trying to put it personal. For example, if you say, "How are you?" No, because the simple fact is that you are here to talk about business. You do not mean anything personal. So you are not expected to ask about how are you and the rest of your family in an official letter. You are not also expected to say, "I hope the job is okay. How is the weather? How are your children?" This is asking about the welfare of that particular person. So therefore, that is not expected. Like it states here, the introduction of a formal letter starts politely. You are not expected to ask after the welfare of the recipient or the family members. This is because you are going to discuss official matters which have nothing to do with the recipient or the recipient's personality. In this, we understand that the way we write the informal and semi-formal is different when it comes to the introduction, when it comes to the address and the title. So let's look at examples that we have here. I write to express my profound gratitude to your organization for the provision of reliable waste disposal system. Here, the starting does not come as, "How are you? I hope you are okay." But you can see it says, "I write to express," straight to the point. I write to express my profound gratitude to your organization for the provision of reliable waste disposal. Another example read like this. It says, "I would like to express my appreciation for your tireless job." Then another example read, "I am hereby applying for the position of a teacher in your institution. These are examples of introduction in a formal letter. Now let's look at the body or the content. The body, that is the content. Remember, we said the body is segmented into the introduction, the content, and the conclusion. So now this is the content. Imagine if you are restricted from the introduction to ask about the welfare of the recipient, the body also, you have to make sure that you focus strictly on the purpose which the letter is designed for. For example, let's look at the body. We say the body is divided into paragraphs. It must not suggest any personal relationship or familiarity between you and the recipient. Even if the recipient is your friend who is occupying an office, but you are writing to that office, not to the person as a friend. Because if you write to the person as a friend, it becomes an informal letter, not a formal letter. Now, the other thing says the body should discuss the main message the writer wants to express. This is where the main content is. And this is where you discuss all what you want to say. You go straight to the point, like I said. Now, the language should be polite. The use of idioms, contractions, slangs, abbreviation, and jovial remarks should be avoided. These are things that you should not. If you use idioms, people in most of the time in office do not have that time to interpret your puzzles or your riddles. So therefore, it is best that you use appropriate language and you do not use contraction like don't, can't, won't, etc. Like can't, don't, won't. These are contractions and they are not allowed in a formal letter. Also, we can have something like abbreviations. Now, abbreviations are not also allowed in a formal letter. For example, if I say GPA, I put this in a formal letter. This GPA can mean Gambia Police Association. It can mean Gambia Professional Association. It can mean also Gambia Ports Authority. So which means the interpretation of these abbreviations could be different. So therefore abbreviations are not allowed. Slangs like I wanna go to Banjul. Since we know that this letter is formal and this wanna go to is not formal English, so therefore this slangs is not accepted and should be avoided. Jovial remarks meaning like you are a wonderful person. You are a wonderful person, or you are very kind, or you are a generous man. These are all jovial remarks that should be avoided when you are writing a formal letter. Slangs, remember, idioms. Idioms like don't let the cat out of the bag. Out of the bag. This is something that needs interpretation. And like I said earlier on, people in offices don't have that particular time to interpret what you are writing. So that is it. So the use of slangs, abbreviation, contractions, and jovial remarks should be avoided in the content. Now, let's look at the conclusion. Remember, we were looking at the introduction, the content. Now we're looking at the conclusion. We say this should spell out the need for the urgent action to be taken in order to solve the problem. For example, you can write something like, I am waiting for your positive response. Now, if you look at this, it is urging the person that you are writing to respond positively. Or, for example, you said, I rely on your usual cooperation. This, you are urging the person to take action to solve the problem. For example, also you can say, I am hoping to hear from you soonest. This will urge the person to write back because you are hoping to hear from the person. And the other one says it should be written in a way that urges the recipient concerned to take the problem seriously. In that, you are talking about urging the person you are writing to take the matter seriously. For instance, let's say there has been a problem in your school and you are writing to the principal or you are writing to the ministry. Therefore, it is important to urge the ministry or your principal to take action. For example, to tell the person the degree of seriousness of the matter. Okay? Now we are looking at examples like, I am looking forward to your positive response. I will be glad if my application is given keen consideration. I hope to hear from you soonest. Now the subscription, it starts with yours followed by faithfully and end with a comma. Append your signature and write your full name. Example, yours faithfully, comma, Masane J. Sise. So, this is a sample of a formal letter. The sender's address reads as Sololo Village, Upper Fuladu West, Central River Region, 24th March, 2020, full stop. The recipient address at the other side reads, the Minister, Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, Banjul, full stop. The salutation reads, Dear Sir. Then the heading goes like this, application for a position of a teacher. I hereby apply for the above mentioned position as the introduction. I have BA in English Language and History, and I have 12 years of teaching experience. Attached are my credentials. I will be glad if my application is given keen consideration. Yours faithfully, and there's a space that you append your signature, Alpha C, full stop. Yours faithfully, comma, the signature, then Alpha C, full stop. That is a sample of a formal letter. Now, here is a summary of what we have learned today. That a formal letter is written to offices and institutions. The language should be polite. No personal feelings should be expressed to the recipient. Formal letter has the following features: 2 addresses, that is the senders and the recipients, salutation, title or heading, body, and subscription. Now, here is an exercise. Write a letter to the chairperson of your area council on the poor condition of roads in your community. Write a letter to the chairperson of your area council on the poor condition of roads in your community. Do the exercise and compare it with the following. Now, let's look at the corrections. We said the sender's address read as SO Village, Lower Nyomi District, North Bank Region. Since it was for the chairperson of the area council, you start the title as the chairperson. Kerewan Area Council, North Bank Region. That is the recipient's address. Then we have the salutation as Dear Sir. Then the heading as Poor condition of roads in my community. The heading can always come from the question. Like if you look at the question, say write a letter to the chairperson of your area council on the poor condition of roads in your community. Now we said poor condition of roads in my community. Now it reads like this. I write to express concern over the state in which roads are in my community. The roads which connect to different villages are in bad condition. This makes it almost impossible to use them during the rainy season. The transportation of goods and people are essential activities that happen in the community. With these conditions of the roads, it is very difficult to carry out these activities. Sir, your timely intervention is needed to solve the menace. Sir, your timely intervention is needed to solve this menace. Looking forward to get a positive response. Again, just like we said earlier on, that you urge at the conclusion, you urge the recipient to take action. This is something that calls for an action. Yours faithfully, then you append your signature, Lamin Mas, full stop. Now, today's assignment is write a letter to the Ministry of Education seeking for sponsorship. That brings us to the end of this lesson of letter writing. I hope you learn from the lesson, and I hope you stay home and be safe. Follow the lessons, do your assignment until I come your way next time. Thank you.